और मेरी बात याद रखना, 31/3/2026 को ये देश नक्सलवाद से मुक्त हो जाए।
India stands closer than ever to closing the chapter on Naxalism. For decades, Naxalism was India's greatest internal security challenge, claiming lives of policemen, civilians, and officials in relentless ambushes. Now, the tide has turned. Maoist strongholds are shrinking, surrenders are accelerating, and violence has dropped to historic lows. But it leaves us with the story that matters most: how it happened, how the state rewrote the rules of the fight. The Maoist insurgency in India, often called the Naxal movement, began as a radical uprising in the late 1960s, claiming to fight for the rights of landless peasants and tribal communities. Over time, it evolved into a violent campaign led by the Communist Party of India, Maoist, spreading across what came to be known as the Red Corridor. Their strategy was brutal and effective in the early years, ambushing police patrols, planting landmines under rural roads, attacking convoys, and assassinating local officials. In states like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Andhra Pradesh, police forces were repeatedly overwhelmed. The Maoists killed hundreds of policemen in coordinated strikes, such as the 2010 Dantewada massacre, where 76 CRPF personnel were ambushed and wiped out in a single operation. These attacks created fear and exposed the weaknesses of conventional policing in dense forests where Maoists held sway. The insurgents thrived because they understood the terrain better than the state. They moved in small units, melted into jungles, and relied on local support. Their early successes were not just military, but psychological. They projected themselves as defenders of the poor, punishing landlords and corrupt officials, and in doing so, they built legitimacy among marginalized communities. For years, the state's response was fragmented. Police units, poorly trained and under-equipped, were sent into forests without intelligence or preparation. Convoys moved slowly, became easy targets, and morale collapsed. The Maoists exploited this weakness, turning the fight into a war of attrition. The turning point came when India realized that defeating Maoists required more than conventional policing. Specialized forces had to be raised, trained, and equipped to fight guerrillas in their own terrain. Andhra Pradesh pioneered this approach with the creation of the Greyhounds in 1989. These were not ordinary policemen, but hand-picked commandos trained in jungle warfare. Their training emphasized endurance, stealth, and survival. Greyhounds operated in small squads, often trekking for days through forests, carrying minimal supplies, and striking camps at night. They became known for their ability to track insurgents silently and launch surprise attacks deep inside Maoist strongholds. Their success in Andhra Pradesh forced Maoists to retreat from the state, proving that specialized units could turn the tide. Inspired by this model, the central government created the Commando Battalion for Resolute Action, or COBRA, in 2008 under the CRPF. COBRA was India's first national-level anti-Naxal commando force with around 10,000 personnel. These men were selected for physical toughness and trained rigorously in guerrilla tactics. Their weapons included AK-47s, INSAS rifles, underbarrel grenade launchers, claymore mines, and later modern carbines and sniper rifles. They were equipped with GPS devices, night vision equipment, and encrypted communication systems, allowing them to coordinate across vast forested zones. Unlike conventional CRPF battalions, COBRA units were designed to move fast, strike hard, and vanish before Maoists could regroup. Their operations were intelligence-driven, often based on information from surrendered cadres or local informants. This marked a shift from reactive policing to proactive counterinsurgency. This strategy also changed at the leadership level. Instead of chasing foot soldiers endlessly, operations began targeting Maoist commanders who orchestrated ambushes. Figures like Kishanji in West Bengal and later Madhvi Hidma in Chhattisgarh were hunted relentlessly. Neutralizing such leaders disrupted the chain of command and demoralized cadres. At the same time, the state improved coordination between affected states. Joint operations sealed borders, preventing Maoists from slipping across jurisdictions. Intelligence databases were centralized, and surveillance drones began mapping terrain once thought impenetrable. The men of Greyhounds and COBRA were hardened by training that mimicked insurgent life. They learned to march 40 kilometers in a day, survive on minimal rations, and fight in extreme heat and monsoon rains. Their ethos was built on discipline and resilience. Unlike regular police, they were not tied to static posts but lived in forward camps, always on the move. This constant presence denied Maoists the freedom of mobility they once enjoyed. Their planning emphasized speed and surprise. Instead of lumbering convoys, small units infiltrated silently, surrounding camps before Maoists realized they were under attack. This broke the cycle of ambushes that had once devastated state police. By the 2020s, these forces had become the backbone of India's anti-Naxal campaign. Their operations steadily dismantled Maoist strongholds in Bastar, Gadchiroli and Jharkhand. Each successful raid was not just a tactical victory, but a psychological blow. Villagers began to trust the state's protection and Maoist recruitment dwindled. The insurgency, once described as India's greatest internal security threat, shrank to isolated pockets. What had been a movement spanning 126 districts was reduced to fewer than 20. The Maoists, who once killed policemen with impunity, now found themselves hunted by men trained to fight exactly as they did, but with better weapons, better intelligence, and the backing of the state. The story of India's victory over Naxalism is inseparable from the creation and evolution of these special forces. The Greyhounds pioneered jungle warfare tactics, and COBRA institutionalized them at the national level. Their men were not ordinary policemen, they were jungle warriors, trained to endure, equipped to strike, and backed by intelligence networks that stripped Maoists of secrecy. Their weapons were modern, their planning meticulous, and their ethos relentless. Together, they transformed the fight from a defensive struggle into an offensive campaign that dismantled the insurgency's core. Maoists once thrived on ambushing state police. Now, they were the ones ambushed, hunted, and cornered. That reversal of roles was the decisive factor in India's success.